Hello members, this is Angela from the HIA. Today we're going to have a discussion about coronavirus and the residential building industry. What we're going to discuss today, because there's a lot going on, is building contracts and how the coronavirus may be affecting them, delays to work and supplies, work health and safety, employee leave, and responding to clients. The first topic is going to be coronavirus and contracts. We have had a lot of member queries about this. It changes daily. There's a lot going on. So we're going to look at a few different scenarios and do our best to cover off on what's going to affect most of our members. So the first scenario we've got here is if I'm a builder and my subcontractor is affected by COVID-19. The first thing we should always do is to have a look. Do you have a written contract? What does it say? In that, generally speaking, that answer is going to be yes. If our subcontractor is required to self-isolate, there's a number of different questions we can look at. Can I seek an extension of time? The general answer to this, can I seek an extension of time, is going to be yes. A HIA new homes and renovation and additions contracts include clauses that allow for a reasonable extension of time on the basis of an act of God, delays in the supply of labour and materials, or a delay caused by something outside of the sole control of the builder. That would be our first port of call, is to go to a HIA contract with our owner and see if we can seek an extension of time. Another thing we might be able to look at is, do we need to terminate our contract with our subcontractor? If they're isolated for 14 days and simply can't do the job, can we terminate our contract with them? Unfortunately, as with all things, there's no simple answer to that. The best thing to do is to talk to your contractors. Terminating a contract is generally a pretty serious matter that can have significant consequences for both parties. When you're looking at whether to terminate the contract with a subby, one of the questions we need to look at is, has the contract with the homeowner ended? Under the HIA period and project trade contracts, which we hope you're using, a contract with a trade contractor can be terminated if your contract with the homeowner has ended. So we have to look up the contractual chain to deal with the current contract. In those circumstances, the subby is entitled to be paid for the work carried out prior and up to the date of termination, plus reasonable costs incurred attributable to the termination. One of the questions we get a lot is, can the subcontractor make a claim for loss of profits? The general answer to that is no. The courts haven't held any loss of profit claims up. If the contract with the homeowner is still on foot, so if we're still required to fulfill our contractual requirements with the homeowner and you have a subby who can't come on site, the trade contractor may be in breach of their contract, and you may be able to terminate the contract because they simply can't fulfill it. An inability to carry out the proposed works within the contracted time period may substantiate a breach of contract. However, there are a few things to consider here. Another legal concept we might need to look at is whether the contract has been frustrated. This is quite a detailed legal argument that we don't really want to get into in a huge amount of detail because it's, court judgment versus court judgment. But in talking to your homeowner or talking to your subcontractor, it might be a good opportunity to raise that the contract simply cannot be fulfilled in the time frame which it currently says, and it might be a jumping off point for negotiations. If you want to talk to us about frustration, please give us a call. The other question we've had is with respect to supply of goods, supply of materials. There's conflicting reports as to whether there's shortages there. So generally speaking, what should I do with materials I no longer need? So if your contract is terminated, that job's no longer going ahead, what are we going to do with those materials? We're generally saying that the best thing to do is to check the contract. Once again, first port of call. You can ask for a credit or, where possible, try and repurpose those goods. The next issue we're going to look at is coronavirus and delays. So the first question, once again, is going to be, do you have a signed building contract? So let's look at if the answer to that is yes first. So if we do have a signed building contract, can alternative products or materials be used? If the contract specifies a particular tap, for example, and that tap isn't available, can we look at using a different brand, a different look? You know, some other alternative that will still keep the homeowner happy. Secondly, we can look at claiming an extension of time. As we discussed before, the HIA contracts, both new homes and alterations and additions, do allow us to claim extensions of time for things that are outside of the sole control of a builder. The next thing that we can possibly look at if we have delays is to speak with our contractors directly about potential delays and how to ensure continuity of trades. It might be that you can, you know, notwithstanding residential building is normally quite systematic in what trades come on when, there may be ways that you can get different trades on site at different times. So we're really suggesting being open and talking to our trades and seeing what can be done. The other thing that we can do is to negotiate with our client, our actual owner, regarding additional time. If we do come up with any agreements with respect to additional time, enlargement of the building period, suspension, anything, if you come up with any agreements with the owner, please make sure that they're put in writing. Even if it's an email confirming your discussions and you get the owner to acknowledge that, we really want to make sure that any discussions at the moment are bedded down for your protection. So there are options if we have a signed building contract. If we don't have a signed building contract, we have to look at, from a practical common sense perspective, what is the likelihood of delays? We might have to renegotiate and make the building period longer to reflect potential delays. We might have to also consider coming up with a special condition regarding additional time in order to get the job finished. Generally speaking, our first port of call is going to be negotiation. Look at your contract, see what it says. Everyone's very much in the same boat together, so we're hoping that there's some reasonableness going on. So it might be a good opportunity just to open up those discussions with both your subcontractors and with your homeowners. The third topic for us today is going to be coronavirus and workplace health and safety. There's been a lot of information put out with respect to this. So the general premise here is that you, your employees, contractors, suppliers, visitors, and any other stakeholders in your business, you have a duty to take reasonable care for their own and others' health and safety. So you may not be able to completely eliminate the risk of workers contracting COVID-19 while carrying out work. However, you must do all that is reasonably practicable to minimise that risk. Once again, by talking to your contractors and clients. So if we look at what precautions can I take on site, we can look at having appropriate facilities, we can look at good hygiene, we can look at having information up everywhere about symptoms and proper hand washing. One of the questions we're getting quite a bit is, what if I can't get supplies of the preventative measures? For example, hand sanitizer is very difficult to get right now. So we have to look at, in the context of the legislation, we have to look at what's reasonable. Can I provide soap instead? Can I set up an extra washing station? So in essence, we just have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to create a safe workplace and that the information is readily available. For employers, another question we've had is, do I need to worry about workers' compensation? You might get questions about this from your employees. In order for workers, generally speaking, in order for workers' compensation for a claim to be made, it needs to be proven, or there needs to be some causation between the disease and workplace and being in the workplace. This is generally quite difficult. Each state specific workers' compensation scheme has taken a slightly different view with respect to this. The root cause of everything is going to be causation, but if you've got any issues with respect to this, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Number 4 is coronavirus and employee leave. This is quite a big topic. So generally speaking, we have 4 different types of leave. That's personal leave, other leave, which can include annual leave, unpaid leave or long service leave, working from home as an alternative, and temporary stand down. So let's look at personal leave. So personal leave is available when the employee is sick or if the employee must care for an immediate family member or member of their household. Other leave may be applicable if the employee does not want to work due to a risk of an infection, if the employee is not sick but is under mandatory quarantine, if the employee is not sick but the employer has directed them to stay at home, or the employee does not want to work due to a risk of infection. So in these circumstances, employers can look at asking the employee to use up their annual leave or to take unpaid leave or to use their long service leave. What a lot of other workplaces are doing is to see whether working from home is a viable option. Obviously, there are some jobs in our industry where working from home is not going to be possible, but there are many other roles that have had to adapt and they can be done working from home. So temporary stand down is another option. It's a little bit more difficult. So an employee can only be stood down without pay if they cannot do useful work in limited circumstances, such as stoppage of work for which you can't be held responsible. It's quite a difficult threshold to reach, but it's certainly something that is open to employers to use. Number 5 is we're going to look at coronavirus and my clients. If you have clients looking to enter into a new building contract or a renovation or an alteration where the clients live on site, there's a couple of extra things you need to consider at the moment. So the first one is we need to communicate directly. Communicate directly with our clients about what your business is doing to respond and invite feedback regarding their concerns. Given how much press coronavirus is getting at the moment, we're getting quite a few consumer queries about the effect of coronavirus, so it would be likely that the owner is keen to have a conversation about this. The next thing that you can do is to explain what you were doing on the job site to mitigate any potential risk. For example, mainly for renovation jobs, are we going to wipe down any surfaces? How are we going to maintain safe distances between clients and workers? What are we going to do if the homeowner is going to be home all day? All of those conversations, it's better to have them up front. It might be that you require all people on site to wear dust masks, if that's the best way to protect everyone. So we're suggesting that if you're pre-contract or you're about to enter into a contract, to have these conversations, set out the parameters up front. It's better to have the difficult conversations now than further down the track. In addition to that, make sure you have plenty of time. There's no point having a tight time frame in your contract if you're not going to be able to stick to it. There is a lot of information coming from all levels of government at the moment. There's daily alerts and daily member alerts that we're putting out. Just wanted to let our members know that if you have any queries or need assistance, please don't hesitate to contact us here at the HIA Workplace Services team. The member number is 1300 650 620. You can send any inquiries to inquiry@hia.com.au and we'll come back to you. And just so members know, we have info sheets and articles and links to all the government departments on a specialist website that we've had set up, which is hia.com/COVID-19. Just want to reiterate that we're here to help you. We're trying to get our members through this and trying to get information out to you as quickly as you can. So please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you for joining us today and best of luck.